This is Kaia McKenna, the conduit of karma, and you're listening to the Fans View podcast. Stay magical.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fans View podcast. On this episode, I'm so excited, and I say that every time, but I'm so excited for this guest. She's a graduate of the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy. She made her pro wrestling debut in 2020. She was ranked 233 in the 2024 PWI Top 250. You might know her as the Conduit of Karma, maybe the Good Witch. I know her as a fellow pug owner, so we just share that bond immediately. Kaia McKenna, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Jared. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. We've been trying to make it happen for a couple of weeks, but it seems as if 2025 has been pretty wild right out the gate.
I'm telling you, let's see, you had what? Neurovirus, a broken jaw or fractured jaw?
I dislocated my jaw.
Dislocated. I was going to get there eventually. On top of just life, we have just been ships passing in the night.
You know, let's just get it all out of the way now.
Yeah, there you go.
Smooth
sailing.
Sail smoothly through the rest of the year. I'm all for getting it out of the way. Just ripping the Band-Aid off.
I think we said that in 2020, though, and we know how that went. So let's just pump our brakes and just, let's not put that into the ether again. Gosh, on to happier news. I'm just going to jump right in because I know you're a busy lady. You've got stuff to do. When did you first find professional wrestling, like, as a fan?
I grew up watching wrestling. I think that's the case for a lot of us. My parents watched it. My grandma watched it. I watched it with my brother. My mom would take us to the house shows. Like, I'm from a smaller town in Maryland, so we were never, like, close to a big city.
Yeah.
So we would go to the local house shows or, like, small indie shows when we were kids, and it's something I had always had a love for.
Right.
But I'm a little bit older. So when I became an adult and I could choose what I wanted to do with my life, there were not a ton of opportunities for women in professional wrestling just yet. So I went and lived a very normal civilian life. And then I had some life changes and I had the opportunity to go to wrestling school. I was like, why not? Like, I don't have a house. I don't have a job like holding me any place right now. So why not?
And I
always wanted to do it. Let's do it.
I love that. Who were some of your favorites, during that, maybe like during the beginning of your fandom? Like, who'd you grow up watching?
I grew up watching, like, my gosh, like mid-90s, lots of like Eddie Guerrero. I love Dean Malenko. I used to love like ECW. I love like when they would bring like the Michinoku Pro guys over and they would do those really fun like tags and scrambles. Those were great. I loved Chyna. I was like, there was nothing like Chyna. She's like the first of her kind, right?
Absolutely.
I love Chyna. I love Luna Vachon. So I grew up in that era for sure, like a little pre-Attitude era, like Shawn Michaels, come on. I'm definitely a Shawn Michaels kid.
Yes.
So that was the era in which I grew up and then I really started watching, but I have watched all through like, the Attitude era, the Ruthless Aggression era, into like the more modern eras. Being from the East Coast, I was very big into Ring of Honor when I was in high school and college because we could get to the shows locally. So a lot of the guys that are at WWE now at the top level were guys that I saw when I was in college, like at the Field House in Manassas, Virginia, doing the thing. Gosh, I'm just giving away my age. But it's something that has always been a part of my life, no matter what else I've been doing. I've always been a wrestling fan and someone who has been very avidly interested in professional wrestling.
Yeah, I love that because it sounds like you're a child of the new generation, like I am. It was very humbling when I had a young lady on the other day, and she said like the first match she ever watched was in like 2008. That was tough.
Well, one of the things I spoke on, right, is when I became of adult age and I could decide what I wanted to do with my life, there were not a lot of opportunities for women to go get trained in professional wrestling. You had wonderful female independent workers. You had like Allison Danger and Mischief and Daisy Hayes, like Lexi Fife. You had these women that were trailblazers, but training was not as accessible as it is now, right?
Right.
Flash forward 15 years, and you can be a 19, 20-year-old girl who saw their first wrestling match in 2008 and just go to a phenomenal wrestling school like Black and Brave or Nightmare Factory or wherever. You can just sign up and you can go. And I love that there's that access, but there was not that access for me at that time.
Right.
But because kids are starting so young, I say kids, right? But because people are starting at such a young age now, because it is so accessible, there is a whole group of women that are interested in professional wrestling, but maybe their entry point was not the same as me or you, right?
Yeah.
They like John Cena, for example, or there are people who are pursuing professional wrestling now that are 19 and 20 that Seth Rollins is to them what Shawn Michaels was to me.
Right.
Or there are women that have never really actually watched professional wrestling, but they absolutely love Nikki Bella and they loved Total Divas and they loved Natalia and they loved that energy. So I've had to learn that not everybody's interest comes from the same path either, right?
Right.
And especially as we have such a range of ages involved in the business now, people's entry
Right.
points vary.
I love that. Such a well thought out response. And you're the
My
segue
brain
queen.
works. It does work. I'm a wrestler. My brain works. I promise you.
You're the segue queen too. Obviously, you brought up Seth Rollins. You brought up
Mhm.
schools not being accessible, but you actually trained at the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy.
I did.
What drew you to that school? Because, like you said, you're an East Coast girl, but that is not on the East Coast. That is far from the East Coast. So, what kind of drew you to that school in particular?
Couple of factors. I am on the East Coast, so while there is an abundance of professional wrestling schools here, there's abundance of traffic, and my sanity has value. And a lot of the programs on the East Coast are longer term. They're like 6 months to a year. They're multiple times a week. That is, if you're working a day job, because we all have bills to pay.
Yes.
That is 3 or 4 hours in traffic a day, 3 times a week, like wear and tear on your car. Tolls, East Coast has crazy tolls.
I'm originally from New Jersey. I feel your pain so hard right
The
now.
DC tolls are nuts. It was $32 to get into the city the other day from Virginia. That is what it is. There's that factor. So there's that. That was a driving force because I was like, do I want to devote this energy to do this out east? Or if I'm going to be spending all of this time and money and resource, should I just go somewhere elite that I really want to go? And that's kind of what drew me to Black and Brave is I was like, wow, this is the best program. This is the best. This guy is there. He is the champ. Like he is the person to learn from. And it is 3 months and you go and you learn professional wrestling. And I've trained many places and there are many techniques and many ways people train professional wrestling. But I will say the way that Merrick and Seth have structured their training program is so effective because it is organized and you learn and everything builds upon everything. And that was a huge draw for me too, is like having that structure, almost like a college course or a syllabus, right? So you're retaining what you're being taught. You're not just doing arbitrary things and hoping that some of it sticks. So just like the professionalism and the elite level that you get at that school was a huge draw for me.
And you said you trained, with multiple different places.
Yeah, since I've graduated, I kind of drop in and just kind of see how other people do stuff because I think everyone has something to offer and everybody you can learn from, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Are there any, I guess for lack of a better term, are there any high profile schools that maybe you've dropped in on that you could name drop?
I love training when I'm out east at Worldwide Dojo, which is world famous CB Cheeseburger in Bristol, Pennsylvania. It is the old Ring of Honor school, which is very, very cool. But he is a phenomenal coach as well. He's very, very patient. He has an incredible wrestling brain. Like Cheeseburger, just the way he thinks about professional wrestling and the amount of information that he retains is seriously so impressive. And he is so kind. So if you are out east and you're not trying to make a big trip out to the Midwest or to the South or to the West Coast, I would definitely recommend training with Cheeseburger. He is a gem.
Such an underrated talent and such an underrated human being. How difficult, because you did debut in 2020 and we kind of alluded
my God,
to
during a pandemic, let's get just going for it.
What was that like? You really, like I said, you debuted in July of 2020, is that right?
Yeah, during the pandemic.
Yeah, not just like kind of like around we were entrenched in the pandemic at that point.
Yes.
What was that like kind of, breaking in at such a weird time, not only in professional wrestling, but just in society?
Well, you had to take what you could get because nobody was running. Fortunately or unfortunately, New Jersey is like the Wild West, and they did not seem to care, and they continued to run professional wrestling shows. So there are worse places I could have been for it being a pandemic, but being close to New Jersey, I'm in Maryland, was quite great. So I was able to get some small reps under my belt, but the hardest thing was the first like 20 matches I had were not in front of people. And it is so
Exactly.
hard as a fledgling wrestler to get your sea legs when
Yes.
you don't even know how people are going to react to what you're doing. You don't know if it's right, if it's wrong. The only audience you have is other professional wrestlers who are like, okay, new kid.
Yep. Yep.
It's just like,
Yep.
it is a whole new level of anxiety, and you just have no benchmark, you have no point of reference for like
Right.
improvement, because you've never worked a crowd and seen how they've reacted to what you do, if it works, if it doesn't. So like
Yeah.
that
I
was
mean,
so difficult. The first time I got to wrestle in front of a real audience was when I did a WWR show for Beyond in 2021. And I was like, oh my God, this is what a crowd is like. This is awesome. No wonder people love this, because I was like, I hated wrestling. I was like, this is horrible. What is this? Why do people do this? Like, I feel like everyone
right.
hates me and I suck and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm confused and lost. And then, like, when I got to work in front of a crowd and I got to experience that magic, I was like, oh, okay, this is okay. This is okay. But I hated wrestling because of it. Like the pandemic made me hate wrestling because I was like, this can't be what it's supposed to be like. And
Yeah.
it made me so grateful for crowds and fans, because it really is what makes the experience worth doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I can't imagine, like you said, you have no one there to kind of
No, you
bounce things off of. I can only imagine how easy it would be to maybe slip into some, bad tendencies and start to develop bad habits.
or when
And
you're
then you get
so
out there in the
new,
real world. Yeah.
when you're so new and there's so much you need to improve upon, it's hard to even start with anything, because you're just like, well, okay, kid, keep going, kid. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay, cool. I was very fortunate that early on in my career, I did have some good opponents during that time that were really good leaders. Like I got to wrestle Masha very early on. I wrestled Holly Dead very early on. I wrestled Alicia Edwards very early on, and they were able to kind of, pick me up and keep me going, even though I was
Yeah.
so new and struggling and just really taking what I got, because there wasn't a lot of options for work. And it's like, well, you're just, even whether you're ready or not, you're going to take it because you got to get out there.
Sink or swim.
Yeah.
So, what was that like? Obviously, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but did it feel like you were starting, did it feel like day one when the world did finally open back up and you were wrestling in front of crowds?
I don't really know. I felt grateful. I felt like reinvigorated, if that's what it was. Not necessarily like, oh, this is really what day one is supposed to be like, because I had been in the trenches. It reinvigorated me to know that, okay, this is how professional wrestling is supposed to work, right? Um,
Right.
so that was the biggest thing for me, is it just made me so grateful. It was such a humbling experience to start off the way I did. And one of the hardest things about starting off during the pandemic is because there were so limited companies running and such limited opportunities, you took whatever you could get, right? Like, even if maybe it was an opportunity you weren't necessarily ready for, you took it, because if you didn't, someone who was even less prepared or
Right.
worse than you was certainly going to take it. So you
Right.
had to say yes, even though you knew you were in over your head and you maybe didn't deserve to be the places you were at yet. And that's scary. That's really scary, but you just have to put up or shut up, and you do it, and you have to go, okay, I'm going to do this the best I can at this moment in time, and I'm going to learn from it, and I'm just going to soldier on. But yeah, that was one of the hardest things about the pandemic, is you're getting the opportunities you get because it's all that's out there, and you just have to go, whether you're
Yeah.
ready or not.
Yeah. So now that you've been on the road, you've been on the road for a couple years, and thankfully the pandemic, I think, is
Yeah,
in our rear view.
hopefully. Please.
Save your injury, which we're going to go back to.
Okay.
How well prepared do you think you were when you left the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy? How prepared were you for that wrestling world? Pandemic aside, because that's an obstacle that they couldn't
It's
have
not
prepared you
a
for if they
baseline
tried.
normally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But did you feel prepared, when you were out there in front of crowds?
I felt that I was fundamentally serviceable, and that I may not have been the best yet because I was green, but I was safe. I was not going to hurt my opponents or myself, and that I was going to have to learn, but I was in a good position to continue learning. Is that fair to
Right.
say? Because no
Yeah.
one comes out of wrestling school 110% ready to go. Like, there's always the exception to the rule, but like most of us are not the exception. We need to be the
We're
expert.
not all Kurt Angle. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it was like, okay, like I feel confident that I am serviceable enough to continue to pursue this and learn along the way and keep my opponents and myself safe. And maybe I'm going to have some stinkers, but I'm starting out. It's just part of the process.
Yeah.
So it does. They really do set you up for success in that sense, right? There's in 12 weeks, they cannot crank you out and turn you into like a prodigy, right? But they can set you up for success in the best way possible by making you very serviceable, fundamentally solid, and safe.
Yeah. And so I want to go back to it now. Unfortunately, like we've said, you were on the road. You've been in the business at least active for about 5 years now, give or take.
Yeah.
We had
Wow.
the pandemic,
I'm
which kind of messed things up, and then we have the injury. Was it a labrum tear? Was that the issue?
I tore my labrum and then I had a Hill Sachs fracture in my humeral head. So if you do not,
Can you explain what that is? Because
yeah,
I'm kind of
you know how
dumb.
your shoulder's like a ball in a socket,
Right.
right? So like a chunk of the ball broke off and it wouldn't stay in the socket.
And
Yeah.
how long did that keep you sidelined for?
A year and a half. I missed a year and a half of my career. I had a major surgery for it. And unfortunately, it was just one of those things that it just takes time for your body to heal from that. Even if you're doing everything right, like I was extremely diligent in my physical therapy. I I don't really drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. Like I take care of myself. I try to take care of myself, and you do everything you're told. It's just your body needs to heal and it takes time. And it unfortunately took a very substantial amount of time of my career. So 5 years, yes, but I probably only have about 3.5 active in the ring when you add that in and then the pandemic, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of weird because it's like I feel like I came into my career and I was like ahead of the eight ball, like, oh Kaia. And now I come back and I'm like way behind the eight ball, like, oh my God, 5 years, Kaia should be so much better. And it's like, but I don't really think it was like I don't truly have 5 years of in-ring
Right.
experience, right?
Right.
So it's trying to make up ground, right? And make up lost time and meet that expectation of me now and change that perception from the past.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to talk about something a little happier and not the injury,
I mean,
um,
that's just reality. It is. And you can
absolutely.
be angry about it, or you can go, okay, this is my situation and this is what I need to do. And this is what I need to focus on moving forward. And I'm a person of action and I choose to do that rather than sit around and be upset about it. I mean, do anything about it that way, right?
Yeah, no, I mean that's the right attitude. It's the only attitude you can have if you want to continue, this path that you're on.
Yeah.
Can you give me a little back and I feel like what you just said might kind of blend into my next question, but can you give me a little background and maybe peel the curtain back a little bit on the moniker that you run with, the Good Witch, Kaia McKenna? It's certainly an
I am
original.
the balance, the good
Yes.
witch, the conduit of karma. The karma flows through me, right? So
Right.
you're gonna get
Okay.
yours. That's pretty much what it comes down to. If
Okay.
you want to dive even deeper, my family are witches. My aunt's a high priestess. There's a coven, whole 9 yards. We are gray witches, so we're very much about restoring balance to the universe. And my aunt was actually the one who came up with the nickname, the conduit of karma, for me. And it has been a phenomenal nickname for me going to the ring. I think it's very fitting. I'm a very intense wrestler. I'm very aggressive,
Yes.
very nice, and very positive, but it's business. I'm going to do what the universe needs me to do when I step into that ring to ensure balance remains.
I love that. I love that you were just gonna gloss over it. I come from a coven of witches, no
Well, I
biggie.
mean, like, for the sake of time, right? Like,
Oh, Kai, we
we have
have
to give
time
you
to
a deep dive
discuss.
on the witchdom, right?
Okay, that's gonna be your return to the
My
Fans You
return, my
podcast.
witchy return.
So something else that I found incredibly interesting about you is you're your own seamstress.
I am.
And I've been very curious because obviously you hear the stories about independent wrestlers sleeping in cars and having no money. And I was kind of curious, was that a product of you just love sewing? Was that a product of, this is how I can cut costs? Or maybe even you came out or you debuted during the pandemic. I can't imagine there were a lot of seamstresses working at that time. So what really propelled you into the seamstress game?
Everyone in my family sews. My mom makes clothes. My aunt and my grandmother are quilters. My grandma used to babysit me a lot when I was a kid, and I would sit and help her cut quilt blocks and, help her sew. And I just learned to sew as a kid from being around them. It's always been something I've done on and off. And then when I started to pursue professional wrestling, it really came in handy. When I started, though, I was not particularly great. I had some ugly little gears I made at first to get to where we are today, but everything is a process. And the more you do it, the better you will get, right? For me now, I work in tech. So it is nice to sew because it gets me away from these screens that we're always
Yes.
on. So for me, it's very nice to unplug and just listen to some music and make something and truly be creative in that way for myself. I will say sewing is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do, but guess what? Neither is professional wrestling. So if you are interested in sewing, I treat it like wrestling, right? Like you had to learn
Right.
to roll and bump before you could learn the moonsault. So you've got to pick something small and learn how sewing works. And as you become more confident and you get better, you can start exploring more complicated patterns and more complicated pieces. You just got to stick with it. It takes reps. Sewing
Yeah.
also takes reps.
Yeah,
Trust me, I have made
you're
some
just not
ugly
gonna
shit.
shred. Yeah,
Okay.
you're just not gonna shred your shoulder doing that. That's all.
No, no. Maybe poke your
Hopefully.
fingers with like some pins or something, hazards of the job. But I love that it just gives you like unlimited creativity. You don't ever feel like you're strapped up for gear. I think I am good enough at sewing, not to brag, but I think I'm good enough at sewing that I can create a very like TV type look for myself on a budget. But that is the product of lots of hard work and hours at getting good at
Right.
sewing. I love one of my inspirations was like I loved Sasha Banks's gear. I loved how no matter what color, what inspiration, it had a look that was inherently always Sasha Banks, right?
Hmm.
So one of the things I strive to create for myself is what would Kaia's gear look like? What is the base for Kaia's gear? And then once I flushed that out, I was like, what if Kaia had gear where she was Glinda the Good Witch and it was pink? Or what if Kaia had gear where Kaia really likes Star Wars, so what if she did a Mandalorian inspired gear set, right? So I was able to like draw upon these influences, much like Sasha, or I guess Mercedes does. She did the Sailor Moon gear, right? And
Yeah.
infuse that into my look, so it's not like a total rip-off cosplay thing, but it's inspired, but still me. And I love that I've kind of found that happy place with like my sewing and my gear creation.
Yeah, I love that. Like I said, you've logged quite a few matches in your 3.5
Yeah,
ish
100.
years
I
of
just had
yeah
100 the other day at the Premier
of
Wrestling Federation.
there we go. Oh, wow,
Yes.
100. Wow,
103 years
that's a
for
lot
the
of
most part.
bumps, ma'am.
Three active years, yeah.
Where are some of your favorite places to wrestle, whether that be like cities or promotions? And not to put down any promotions that you don't mention, because that's not what we're trying to do.
No, I
But
generally don't work for people I don't like at this point because it's like wrestling is hard enough as it is. I want to enjoy myself when I go to do it. And if the environment is not conducive to me enjoying myself, I don't want to be there, and it's nothing personal. So I have curated a nice little place loop of places that I really like to work these days, and I'm very happy.
I'll ask you it this way then: what promotions are on that loop, off the top of your head?
Oh my gosh. Well, we'll start with I love working at the Premier Wrestling Federation. It is down in Newport, North Carolina, which is on the Crystal Coast. It is run by Colby Carino. They have students there at the Carolina Wrestling Academy as well, which if you are in that area, that is a wonderful place to go train. We were talking about training earlier.
Yep.
But it is such a good environment. The fans down there are great. Colby always books phenomenal cards. He's really great at creating great matchups, getting people opportunities, and helping people grow. So for me, like getting to work there is such a privilege because I feel like I experience so much growth as a wrestler when I'm there. And I like the fans. It's a good time. It's good locker room, good people, good time. I also really, really enjoy working for Action Wrestling in
Hmm.
Georgia. Matt has a wonderful promotion in Action. He books some top tier talent in just great cards constantly. I think that, in my humble opinion, Action is probably the top promotion in the Southeast territory of this country. There is nobody better. I love going there. It's crazy. I just worked a show for Action. I'm pretty sure he had 650 people in that building, and I don't see
Man.
crowds like that in many places these days on the indies, right? So
Is that the Noonan, Georgia
it is.
promotion?
It is. He runs in
Okay.
Noonan. He runs in Tyrone. He'll do like shows at like the local middle schools, which is so great because like I have this saying where like I'd rather wrestle in front of 500 kids than 50 adults any day of the week, right?
That's
And
fair.
just
That's
the
fair.
energy that
Yeah.
the fans of Action bring is awesome. He has created such a family there, from the wrestlers down to the fans, that it is a privilege to be a part of his promotion. It really truly is. I had a great match there this year with Ella Envy. It was
I saw
awesome,
that.
hard
Yep.
hitting. Finally got my win back on her after last year. Notched that one in the witch column.
It sounds like you're a fan of the Southeast. I'm in South
I do.
Carolina, so
Yeah,
we've
I've
got to
been
get
spending a
you
lot of
a
time in the
little.
Southeast.
We got to get you a little farther south and a little farther east, and then we'll be in good
We'll
in
be
good
in good
shape.
biz. I do like
Yeah.
working the other territories, though. Like I said, I've spent a lot of time up in the Northeast. I always enjoy working for Beyond Wrestling. I have
Yes.
not been there recently because I've been taking more Southeast bookings just to work somewhere different. It's nothing personal, but I would like to maybe start getting back up to Beyond. I do love working for Focus Pro in Boston. They're a newer company, but they put on these amazing shows at Widowmaker Brewery in Braintree, Massachusetts, and it's fun. They know how to have a good time. So, but again, good talent pool, good variety, good locker room, great fans. Focus Pro is definitely going to be something special to keep your eye on. In the Midwest, I'm so excited to be going back to the Midwest. I have worked for many promotions in the Midwest in the past.
Right.
I've worked for SCW Pro. I've worked for Dreamwave AAW, but I'll be making my debut for Second Wrestling in March. So I'm so excited to be returning to the Midwest. And I also, speaking of the Midwest, I am currently the WrestleMax St. Louis Women's Champion.
Let's go.
I know, I'm so excited. I kept getting screwed, right? Like I kept getting title matches, but I just could not get ahead of the heels. And I was like, there's a reason this is happening. There is a reason the universe is putting all of these annoying people in my way. And I finally, like, everything fell into place where there were no factors that could interfere with the destiny of me winning. And I captured that championship at the end of 2024. And I look very much forward to my first defense whenever it may be.
Getting it
Big
done.
props to WrestleMax.
That's
Wonderful
right.
promotion as well.
Let's
Shout
go,
out KLB.
WrestleMax. Let's go. So, in that same vein, and I know you've wrestled dozens of women at this point,
I
but
think like 73 different, like, which is pretty wild.
that's a lot of.
Maybe
My
I'm
God,
guesstimating.
the bump counter. I can only imagine where that's at. Do you have any? Obviously, I don't want to say favorite ladies to step in the ring with, but do you have opponents that just you really enjoy working with?
I really enjoy working with Ella. I love the intensity she brings. It always makes me kick it up to another level with her. Like, I cannot be a slouch when I'm with her. Not that I would be a slouch, but there are people that just like, all right, like I gotta match her, or it's gonna be a
Right,
bad day for me.
right.
Ella's phenomenal. I love working Blair Onyx. I've worked Blair Onyx a few times in the Midwest since the start of my career because she is a fellow Black and Brave graduate, and I've loved seeing her growth as well over the years. I really love what she's doing right now. We always have good matches together, and it is an honor to step in the ring with her every time I get the chance just to kind of grow together, right? She's one of my favorite opponents. I want to say it's hard to think of favorite opponents because I don't have a lot of repeat opponents, which I think is a
Yeah,
good thing. It's good to like wrestle different people, but I don't really have too many
absolutely.
repeats.
Right.
So yeah, like I feel privileged to step into the ring with girls like
I mean,
that always make me better.
yeah, that's definitely. I mean, those ladies that you mentioned are definitely those. That's fierce competition right there.
Yeah.
So that's a great answer. We've talked about your indie run. I want to talk just a little bit, touch on it. Baby Kaia did a little bit of work with AEW.
I
Can
did.
you talk about what that experience was like being so early in your career on top of
The
making
worst
your
feeling
debut in
in the
AEW?
world, let me tell you, the worst feeling in the world, and we kind of touched on this earlier, is having to take an opportunity that is a privilege to get because pressure is privilege, but having to take it well knowing that you were not ready
You have no business there.
and that you're going to get eaten alive. You got to nut up and do it because this is what
Like
we
it.
do. This is what we do, sister. So it was extended to me and I was extremely grateful. And I took that opportunity and I learned so much from it. Thunder Rosa kicked my ass. But I learned so much from that one day. And if I had to do it all over again, I would still do it, even though I was very new and very green and in over my head. I think that it's something that you have to do and you learn from and you take it as it is and you take it in stride and you come back better. So I'm so grateful for that, but it was terrifying being that new and being in that position,
Yeah.
it truly was. It truly was. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I knew what I was doing and I deserved that because I was so new. But I was so honored that someone there saw something in me to extend that to me. So I felt like it was a privilege to be there and that I was going to take that and I was going to do the best that I was capable of at that point in time.
Right.
Hopefully one day I get to come back and maybe like I notched my win back on Ella, I'll eventually somewhere down the road get mine back on Thunder Rosa.
Did you have any opportunities to spend any time with Dustin Rhodes? Because obviously all the women at AEW just scream his praises about how,
I think he
entrenched
knew how
in.
new I was and he was extremely kind. He
Yes,
was
okay,
wonderful.
that's
He was
that's
our he was
that's
our agent, and he was wonderful, and he was very encouraging and supportive and really helped me get what I needed to do that day done. So I am
that's
very
awesome.
grateful for him, and I can see how women sing his praises as a coach
Yes.
because for the one day that I had to interact with him, he was extremely kind and a great mentor to me for those 6 hours. I mean, I'm not gonna say, like, I know him super well or anything, but the
Right.
time that I did have to work alongside him, he was phenomenal at what he does there.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, even if it's 15 minutes
Yeah,
under a learning tree like that, that's 15
absolutely,
minutes
yes, and
that,
you
yeah,
talk about not being ready for something, but that's one of the reasons you go regardless, right, is to get to learn from someone like that, because in your
exactly.
head, you might be like, "Well, I'm not ready for this, but I can learn from Dustin Rhodes if I go do this, so I need to go do this because I'm going to learn something today."
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the attitude you have to have, right?
Absolutely. And carrying that over, I mean, we're in February, we're heading towards March here, but what does 2025, hold for you? What are you looking forward to this year? Obviously, I know you're on the road, you're logging matches, but what does 2025 hold for Kaia McKenna?
I think that 2024 was for me a lot about finding my footing and regaining my confidence after my injury. And now that I have regained that confidence and I have found my footing, I am going to dominate 2025. There is nothing holding me back inside of me anymore. I don't ever think there was anything externally holding me back. I truly think I was holding myself back because I could not clear that mental hurdle. But I am ready. I am so ready. I have never felt this ready. Like, I think I've said, like, oh, I'm ready in the
I'm
past. But,
getting
like,
hyped. Let's go.
no, like, I'm absolutely ready. I am confident in my abilities as a worker now. I am confident. I know what I do in the ring. I know what I do well. I know what I don't do well, but I know what I do well. And I've really kind of found my voice and who I am and what I want to project every chance I get to have a match. And that has made wrestling fun in a different way for me this year, right? So I really look forward to just exercising this confidence that I have finally found within myself and seeing the difference that it makes in the trajectory of my career this year. I am ready.
That is, you get me excited. I love that. I love that answer. Like your love for professional wrestling really, like, it comes through when you talk
I
about it.
do. I do love professional wrestling, and I think everybody says that, but like, I'm an adult in the real world. I've got a job. Like, I guess I don't have to do professional wrestling, right? Like, I choose to do this because I love it. I choose to spend my free time and my money and my resources and my mental capacity doing this because it is something I truly love and I have always loved this business. And I just think it is an absolute honor to be a part of it in this capacity. I would never take that for granted. And
I love that.
it's something that you need to love this business because people are like, well, it's not going to love you. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that if you are someone who truly loves professional wrestling, wrestling will love you back with the right people in the right places. So
Yeah.
you have to remember that you do this because you love it. That needs to be the reason we're all here because
Yes.
any of the other reasons are very, very fickle and they're not going to be fulfilling for you in the long run. You need to be here
Well
because this
said.
is something you truly, truly enjoy doing and that you would do regardless of your barometer for success.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so well said. And I really think, not to blow smoke, but I think professional wrestling is lucky to have a steward like you that has that mindset and that love for the business.
You have to love this.
Absolutely.
If you're just trying to
Absolutely.
like make money, there are plenty
They're
of
out
ways to
there.
make more money. Okay. If you just want attention, there are plenty of ways to get attention that are easier than professional wrestling. If
Yeah.
you want to be famous, the internet offers a treasure trove of ways to be famous that are easier than professional wrestling to pursue.
But they're still out there, unfortunately. So,
I'm not here to say who is and isn't, but
yeah.
what I am here to say is, like, in order for this to be worth your time and efforts, you need to love it. Otherwise, it's probably best to just go find something else to do with yourself.
Yeah. That is
Because
solid advice.
it is.
Absolutely.
It's honest. This is not something, like I said, it's very, the fame and the money and the attention from this is very fickle. It's not going to fulfill you. You have to want to be here and enjoy being in
Absolutely.
professional wrestling environments.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can't do what you need to do at the level that it needs to be
No.
done unless you have that deep-seated love.
And the people that don't have that, they don't make it. Or if
Right.
they do, they're not around long.
Right.
Like, if you look at the major players in our business, like people that have been in this business at a high level for 15 plus 20 years, it is because they love it and they want to be here. Because
Yeah.
even if you think of someone, let's say Seth Rollins, because I know he's been wrestling 20 years now, however many at WWE, how many people have come and gone over those 20 years, right? But he's here because he loves this shit and he wants us to love this shit, and I respect that so much.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what it
Absolutely.
takes, is you have got to love wrestling. Like, otherwise you aren't going to be here long.
Yeah. That's the understatement. It's just the understatement of the year.
I mean, here's why, like Sami Zayn, right? Or like
Yeah.
Kevin Owens, like these guys, they love wrestling. You can tell they love wrestling.
Yeah.
And that is
Absolutely.
why they are still here at the top of their game, entertaining us years later. Like,
100%.
you gotta love it.
100%. It's like you said, the ones that don't, we don't know their name.
How many people, like, literally think 20 years, how many people, even on TV, right, have come and gone in 20 years? Athletic people, good looking people that by all means on paper should be extremely successful in this business, but
Yep.
they're gone.
Yep.
And it's like, you cannot teach a love for this business.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
Let me get off my
I
soapbox now.
no, I love
I have
that.
even
Like I
something
said,
to clip out for social media.
there we go. You're like I said, I want to let you go, and I want you to, because you're such a good steward of professional wrestling. It's fewer and far between than it should be that you find someone like you that, everybody says they love professional wrestling.
Yeah, I mean,
It's easy, but you have, you've given your body, you've given your time. Like you said, you're a grown ass woman with a real job who's going out here to Des Moines, Iowa, to kick her own ass for 12 weeks and then go wrestle in front of nobody.
while working full time.
There's a global pandemic going on. So I really, and again, I don't want this to
Hey,
be
Jarrett, look at it this way. I love tacos. I'm not opening a restaurant, okay?
exactly.
It's okay to love wrestling. You ain't got to be a wrestler.
That's good advice as
So
well.
it's, I had a tweet that got some traction earlier this week where I was basically like, whenever you encounter a wrestling promotion and it's extremely poorly run and you don't understand how this happens, just think there are tons of people in this world that love food and have money and open the worst restaurants you could possibly imagine. So it is what it is.
I hate to even pivot off of that, but my next question:
bad food or bad wrestling?
Well, no. Well, I love to pivot off of that, but I hate to take you away from wrestling. But my next question was: when you're not wrestling and letting the business consume you, what do you enjoy doing? Away from the ring. Like you said, you like to sew and kind of unplug from the world a little bit. What are some things that you enjoy doing outside of professional wrestling?
I like fishing. I like riding my bike on the boardwalk, it's very quiet and peaceful. I really like hobbies that do not involve other people or technology. I like to read books a lot, but I don't want to read really esoteric, pretentious things. I want to read fodder for my brain. So it's just happy and I can turn it off.
Yeah.
I read the Star Wars books. I love those. I like to sit outside and do nothing and listen to birds. And I know that's crazy, but there is just a peace in being able to just exist and not need constant stimulation, right? And just go, okay, I'm just sitting here and I am relaxing. I think Daniel Bryan said something about that when he was recovering from a concussion. He would go outside and like listen to birds and look at trees. But like there's something cathartic about just like being able to just stop moving in a world that's go, 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 right?
Yeah,
So a lot of
absolutely.
my hobbies are centered around like just creating a little bit of peace and quiet for myself in the world and just a space to be me.
Okay. Well, I love that. This isn't on my list, but we've mentioned Star Wars too many times for me not to ask.
Yeah, it came up a couple of times.
Where do we stand on Jar Jar?
I
I'm
like
going to
Jar
ask you the
Jar.
hard hitting
I
questions.
like Jar Jar.
You're
I
a Jar
love Jar,
Jar fan?
especially as a kid. I loved Jar Jar. Oh my god, are you kidding? Like I grew up in the Phantom Menace era. I was like 11 when that movie came out, or like 10. Like I think that there are a lot of opinions on Jar Jar Binks from adults, and they forget the purpose of Jar Jar Binks is to entertain children, and like not everything is for you as an adult. So I am not a Jar Jar hater. I like Jar Jar Binks.
Do you have a favorite? Obviously, it's so hard to just pick one movie, but do you have a favorite? And is it Empire?
It is not Empire. I love Attack of the Clones, which is probably not the one
Okay.
a lot of people like, but I
That
love that movie.
okay, so you're a prequel kind of girl.
I am. Well, I
Okay.
guess that's what I grew up with.
That's me too. Me too.
I
I
love.
don't tell people out loud how much I did enjoy those prequels.
I
'Cause,
don't care. People can come for me. Like that is the tribalism is wild, right?
oh my
Wrestling, like
gosh.
Star Wars, like anything you're into, there are going to be crazy people who want to just make you not enjoy it. I just say enjoy what you enjoy, and who cares what other people think about it? It's like
That is
it has no bearings on your existence. Trust me. I
that
will
is
gladly sit and watch Jar Jar Binks and Attack of the Clones and eat bonbons and be very happy. Leave me alone.
you are my favorite professional wrestler of all time. Like the jury's not even out anymore. It's done with. You are it. Yeah, no, I'm with you though. Now that I feel like I'm in my safe place, like
Okay.
The Phantom Menace was a really good movie and I really enjoyed it.
Did you go see it when they re-released it?
I saw it
It
when
was
it hit the
awesome.
theaters first time around.
I did too, but I didn't appreciate it because I was a child. To see it again in the movie theater as an adult was awesome.
Did my wife still hates me for it, but I did make her go see it again.
It's okay. Sometimes we have to
Jar-
do things for ourselves in this world.
yeah, I'm telling you. Spoiler alert, guys, but Darth Maul's, body in two pieces haunted me most of my childhood. That was some of the most intense
He
stuff I've
didn't
ever seen.
actually die. He didn't actually die. He did.
We could have this
We
is
could
gonna
have
see
to
that's
see.
gonna be your third episode of the Fans View podcast where we're
I gotta
just gonna
like
talk
find
about
some
Star
Star
Wars.
Wars podcasts to go on as like a yeah. So if you know anybody who has one that wants to
I'm
have a
gonna
guest
start I'm gonna look around and start facilitating because I want to listen to that. So what I love to do here on the Fans View, look at me, I can't even pronounce my own show correctly. I'm so wrapped up in Jar Jar and the Phantom Menace. I like to have a little segment called The Fans View.
okay.
Well, I'd love to show you a picture. I'm show everybody the picture, obviously, and just hear the story behind it. Because I mean, the saying, a picture. Can I find it? Look at me. Here we go. Okay, who is this baby?
My God, she's
Is
very
that
blonde.
who is that young lady right there?
Yeah, that is me. That is me in my AEW, my one AEW match. And I have to say, I was so happy to be there. I know this is, I know everybody would say that, right? But I
Yeah,
was the first match they taped. So, of course, they preload you. And I'm standing there and I'm just kind of like looking around, and we're in Prudential Center, which is quite large. And I'm like, this is really cool. Like, I feel like a lot of people are nervous, but like, I wasn't actually nervous. There was like this comfort of just like being there, and I just really did take a minute and appreciate that. And that was this was moments after that had happened, so I feel like I was still kind of riding that little giddy high of that moment. But I was looking around, I was like, this is really 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 cool, right? Like to see all those people, and then like on such a macro level was wild, right? Because when you wrestle on the independents, you can hear everything anybody in the crowd says, like, because there's like 150 people, right?
yeah.
And then, but when you're in front of that many people, it's like NBA Jam. You might see like people in the first 3 rows, but everybody else is like little blob people. And the reactions, you can't make anything out in particular. It's just like yes or no. And it's wild. It was comforting almost. It took away a lot of the nerves that I had had in professional wrestling to have that experience, right? And that's like, oh my God, then I have to
Absolutely.
go back to the indies and there's like 100 people and they're all staring at me. You can see all their faces. Oh
And
my God.
the queen of segues strikes again because our next picture is going to be a little bit different, I do believe. Want to hear the story behind this one?
Yeah, so funny story. This is at Combat Fights Unlimited. It is a Bloodsport style women's promotion that runs in New Jersey quarterly, I believe. And I was all about this because prior to pursuing professional wrestling, I did have some martial arts experience in both Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and Ishinru Karate. So it was really a fun little thing for me to dip into and play with and explore that side of professional wrestling that is a little bit more gritty and a little bit more less theatrical. We'll just leave it that, right? So yeah, just unleashing the beast here.
Yeah, she's not having a good time.
Nah,
I love that. So I'm going to take this thing home. Kai, I have had so much fun talking to you. This has been well worth the wait. There's a question that I like to ask everyone here, because at the end of the day, this is the Fans View podcast. Like, I'm just a fan. I am nobody special. And I think the people that listen, they like to get to know the performers, maybe what are they like? What are their likes, their dislikes, their, all of that. But they want to know who you are, not just who you are as a performer. And I think no question could sum it up better than this one. And that is, what does the term, at this point in your life and in your career, what does the term success mean to you?
Success means to me personally that you have hit a level of detachment where you find enjoyment in everything you pursue, right? Where you're not constantly putting pressure on yourself. You don't feel like you're under the gun and you're really able to enjoy the experiences you have in life, right? Or in wrestling, right? If we're talking about success in wrestling, to me, true success is when you hit that point where you are able to enjoy every experience you have, right? And you were able to really fully be present in the moment and appreciate your life. And a lot of people never are really truly successful because they're never satisfied, right? They can't get to that point. So, yes, to me, success is when you are able to just find enjoyment and not everything creates stress for you or pressure, and that it is okay. Like you have hit that point where you are happy.
I love that. I love that answer so much. And you're going to get a bonus question, actually, because you are the first guest since WrestleMania season has officially kicked off, in my opinion. So I'm going to put it to you. Do you have a favorite WrestleMania match?
And I don't think I do, because there's so many that are good.
You can throw a couple at me. You don't have to narrow it down to just one.
Narrow it down to just one. I feel like I'm choking. I've seen so many WrestleMania matches, and I should definitely have one just locked.
Do you have a favorite WrestleMania? Maybe like the entire event?
Oh, 17 for sure. No, 17 for sure. Just because I grew up in that is like, yeah, that's a great WrestleMania.
That's fair.
What was it? 37 was in Dallas, right? I actually thought that was a very good WrestleMania. I went to that one. And I really enjoyed it. Okay, one of my favorite WrestleMania matches of all time. I like Austin and Rock from WrestleMania 99. So that would be WrestleMania 15.
15, yep.
I do like that one. But again, that was when I was growing up. So
yeah, that WrestleMania broke my heart. That's when Triple H left Generation X.
It is when he left DX.
I still haven't forgiven him. It's an underrated Mania because it was so disjointed and weird, and you had the Fatal 4-Way and the Triple Threat. And
you know what the weirdest one was? The McMahon in every corner, WrestleMania 2000. Okay, now my brain is functioning. It took a second.
Now I got the juices
now
flowing.
We're getting somewhere. I was WrestleMania. Okay.
I think WrestleMania 16, I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that's the only WrestleMania in history that did not have a singles match on the card. There wasn't one singles match.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yep.
I think they all have had at least one singles match.
Yeah. I mean,
wild times.
And then 16 was just, that was peak Attitude Era. I think you had the 4-Way in the main event. You had the Hardcore Invitational.
Yeah, that was the McMahon in every corner. Was 16, right? Yeah.
Yep.
That was an interesting WrestleMania. But I think Austin Rock from the year before is one of my favorite. Will always.
So the first Austin Rock. Okay. I like that. I like that a lot.
My plug just made a demon noise. Yes, she's awake. Are you awake?
You have awoken her.
I have awoken her. I have disrupted her slumber. She was like, bleh! And I was like, whoa, okay. Let me grab her. You want to say hi? I know I said I'd get her to say hi to you.
Yeah.
But I have to have her wake up. This is Empress.
And how old is she?
She just turned 13.
Wow. She's still a young lady.
Sweet
Still a young
lady.
lady. Have you had her since she was a baby?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
She's
I have.
talking.
I love that sound. Frank is
Does yours
sleeping
make that
downstairs.
sound?
Yes, he sounds like a kitten. People can't appreciate the pug snuggles.
Purr. I know.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Is yours a Velcro pug? I feel like I have a Velcro pug. She's like always on me.
I'm gonna have to go get him in just a second. You're gonna have to meet Mr. Frank before we get off this
I
call.
would love to meet Frank. Empress would like to meet Frank too.
I will go get him as soon as we wrap this up.
Okay.
Kaia, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, sincerely,
Yeah.
I very much enjoyed our conversation. Where can people get to you on social media? You know, if they want to talk pugs or Star Wars, maybe even wrestling, who knows?
Oh my god, she looks like she's suffering as I'm kissing her. I love it. I am on all social media platforms under the handle KaiaMcK. So it'd be KaiaMcK. Facebook, Twitter, or I guess X. Facebook, X, Instagram, Blue Sky, all the same. TikTok. I don't really do a lot of TikTok, but I'm there. I'm there.
And
If you follow
promoters.
me on X and Instagram, though, I do try to post all of my recent matches and dates and merch releases and all of that as well. So that's the best way to kind of follow me.
And we have some pug merch that just dropped.
We do. We have little pug merch. Yes.
Let's go, people.
We have koozies, little can koozies. We have tote bags. We have little trucker hats with charms on them. We have stickers with pugs on them. And we have purple shirts with little pugs on them too. The fans voted and purple won the vote. So we're doing purple.
Take all my
y'all better
money,
buy them. Voted
Take
for
all
them.
my money.
Don't make me stuck with a bunch of purple t-shirts, y'all.
Love that. And promoters, I guess, can just book you through email. Is that
Kaia McKenna Pro at gmail.com.
All right.
And the merch is KaiaMcKenna.BigCartel.
And I will have all that in the description, guys, so you can go pick yourself up a t-shirt. Look, she's got dog food to buy, guys. What are we doing?
Yeah,
here?
I do. I have to feed a pug. It's
and
like
trust
throwing food into a sarlacc pit. Trust me.
Yes. Well, thank you, Kaia, so much. Thank you, Miss Empress, for making an appearance.
Yeah.
Disturbing her from her slumber.
I know. I'm sorry I woke you up.
She'll be asleep in 5 minutes, I'm sure, if she's anything like mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope we get to have you on again. We'll talk some Star Wars and everything we didn't even get to touch this time around.
Well, thank you so much. I had a great time chatting, Jarrett. I'll be back.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to go support Kaia. Like she said, hit her up. If you're a promoter, jump in her email. If you're a fan, Instagram, maybe not TikTok, X. Buy a shirt, a purple pug shirt, guys. What are we doing? Support her. Until next time, guys, I appreciate everybody. And don't forget, call your mom.
If you haven't liked or subscribed, you're going to be joking me.